The November rain pattered against the windows of Laila Ali's Chicago home, creating a melancholic soundtrack for the task at hand. 3 years had passed since her father's death, yet only now did she find the strength to sort through the final boxes of his personal belongings. At 45, Laila had built her own legacy: undefeated boxing champion, successful entrepreneur, mother. Yet in moments like these, she felt like a little girl again, overwhelmed by the shadow of the greatest. Mom called again, said, her husband Curtis, as he entered the attic space carrying 2 steaming mugs of coffee. "She's worried about you spending too much time with these old memories." Laila accepted the coffee with a grateful smile. "Tell her I'm fine. This needs to be done, and I want to do it myself." Curtis nodded, understanding. Muhammad Ali had left behind not just a sporting legacy, but a mountain of memorabilia, letters, and personal items scattered across multiple properties. This final collection from his Arizona home contained his most private possessions. Things even his wife Lonnie hadn't fully catalogued. The box before her was simply labeled "Medals and Awards, Personal." Inside, nestled among familiar accolades, something caught Laila's eye. A small velvet pouch she'd never seen before, tucked into the corner. Opening it carefully, she pulled out a gold medal attached to a faded blue ribbon. "That's odd," she murmured, turning the medal over in her hands. It wasn't from boxing. The inscription indicated it was from the 1960 Olympics in Rome. But something wasn't right. Her father had won gold at those Olympics when he was still known as Cassius Clay, yet this medal looked almost new, barely handled. Curtis leaned closer. "I thought your dad's Olympic medal was lost. That's what he always told everyone," Laila said quietly. "He claimed he threw it into the Ohio River after being refused service at a restaurant because he was black." The story had become legend, a powerful symbol of Ali's stance against racism in America. Historians, journalists, and even family members had accepted it as truth for decades. Yet here was what appeared to be the medal, hidden away rather than discarded. Attached to the pouch was a small note in her father's distinctive handwriting, becoming shakier in his later years. "The one I could never wear again. The truth is, in the letters." Laila's heart raced. What truth? What letters? Her father had been many things: a champion, an activist, a cultural icon, but she had never known him to fabricate stories, especially ones so significant to his legacy. If this was indeed his Olympic gold medal, why had he kept it secretly all these years, while telling the world he'd thrown it away? She carefully returned the medal to its pouch and dug deeper into the box. At the very bottom, beneath newspaper clippings and photographs, she found a manila envelope. Inside were several yellowed letters, their creases deep from being folded and unfolded many times over the years. The first was dated December 1960, just months after the Rome Olympics. The return address showed it had come from Louisville, Kentucky, her father's hometown. The handwriting was unfamiliar. As Laila began to read, her hands trembled. The words transported her to a different America, one she had never experienced, but had heard about countless times from her father. An America where even Olympic champions weren't served in certain restaurants if their skin was the wrong color. If this story has made you feel something, even something small, don't leave without giving back. Comment and tell me where you're watching this video from, and subscribe to the channel. The letter was from a man named James Franklin, who identified himself as the owner of the very restaurant that had allegedly refused to serve her father. "Mr. Clay," it began, "I write this letter with a heavy heart and great shame. What happened at my establishment that day in October is something I will regret for the rest of my life." Laila's breath caught. The letter went on to explain that Franklin hadn't been present when her father was turned away. His manager had enforced the segregation policy against his wishes. Franklin expressed profound remorse, describing how his own son had idolized the young Olympic champion and had been devastated to learn what happened. The most shocking part came near the end. I have enclosed something with this letter. It is not a replacement for your medal, nor could anything replace what that achievement means. But my family had it made for you as a symbol of our respect and apology. I understand if you never wish to wear it or acknowledge it. Laila sat back, stunned. Had her father received a replica medal from this restaurant owner? If so, what happened to the original? The second letter, dated January 1961, was her father's response. A carbon copy he'd kept. Young Cassius Clay had written that he accepted the apology, but could not accept the replica medal, explaining that the incident had forced him to confront harsh realities about America that no gold medal could change. Subsequent letters revealed an unexpected development. Franklin and her father had developed a correspondence over the years. As Cassius Clay became Muhammad Ali and faced controversy for his religious conversion and stance against the Vietnam War, Franklin became one of his unlikely supporters. A letter from 1967, written on Waldorf Astoria stationery, caught Laila's attention. Her father wrote to Franklin during one of the darkest periods of his life, after being stripped of his heavyweight title for refusing military service. The medal remains in my possession, both of them now. The original I keep as a reminder of what I achieved. Yours I keep as a reminder that people can change. Neither can be worn publicly. One because of what America did to me, the other because the world cannot understand the complexity of forgiveness. Laila felt a chill. Her father had kept both medals, the original and the replica, but maintained the story about throwing the medal away. Why? The next morning, Laila drove to her mother's expansive Lake Michigan estate. Lonnie Ali lived in a $10 million mansion with panoramic views of the water, surrounded by artwork collected during her decades with Muhammad. Now 72, she maintained the quiet dignity that had characterized her role as the final wife of the boxing legend. I never knew about any of this, Lonnie admitted, after Laila showed her the medal and letters. They sat in Lonnie's private study, where a rare Basquiat painting worth several $1 million hung above a custom-made desk of African mahogany. He had so many private dimensions, even from me. But why maintain the story about throwing it away? Laila pressed. Dad was always about truth. Lonnie's fingers traced the edge of her platinum Cartier watch, a gift from Muhammad on their 20th anniversary. The truth can be complicated, Laila. Sometimes a symbolic truth carries more power than a literal one. Unsatisfied, Laila decided to track down any remaining connections to James Franklin. Using her assistant's access to premium research databases and private investigators who typically worked for her corporate security team, she discovered that Franklin had passed away in 1989, but his son, mentioned in the original letter, might still be alive in Louisville. 2 days later, Laila found herself on her private jet approaching Louisville International Airport. As the luxury Gulfstream G650, a $35 million aircraft she'd purchased after signing her most recent television development deal, began its descent, she reviewed what she knew about Michael Franklin, now in his 70s. The son of James Franklin had become a civil rights attorney after attending Harvard Law School, establishing a practice dedicated to fighting discrimination. Newspaper archives showed several photographs of him with prominent leaders of the movement throughout the 70s and 80s. What puzzled Laila was the absence of any public connection between the Franklins and her father. If they had maintained correspondence for years, why was there no mention of this relationship in any biography or interview? As her chauffeur-driven Bentley Bentayga pulled up to a modest law office on the outskirts of Louisville, Laila steeled herself. Whatever secrets lay behind her father's medal story, she was about to uncover them. Michael Franklin's office was nothing like Laila had expected. For a man who had represented high-profile civil rights cases and reportedly amassed considerable wealth, his workspace was surprisingly humble, a small brick building with a simple sign reading Franklin Legal Services. Inside, family photographs lined the walls, interspersed with framed newspaper clippings and civil rights memorabilia. Laila noticed something immediately. In nearly every historical photo, her father could be spotted somewhere in the frame, often in the background rather than prominently featured. A secretary led her to Franklin's office, where an elderly man rose slowly from behind his desk. His movements were stiff, but his eyes were sharp and alert. "Ms. Ali," he said, extending his hand. "I've been expecting you to find me someday." Laila felt a chill run down her spine. "You knew I would come?" Franklin gestured to a chair. "Your father and I discussed it many times. He said you were the one who would eventually piece it all together." "So, you know about the medal?" "About the letters?" Laila asked, setting her Hermes Birkin bag, a $70,000 accessory she rarely used except for important meetings, on the floor beside her. "I know everything," Franklin replied. "Simply, I've been the keeper of your father's secret for over 60 years. Over the next hour, Michael Franklin revealed a story that left Laila speechless. Her father had indeed been refused service at the restaurant in 1960, but what happened after was far more complex than the simplified narrative that became public legend. "Your father did throw something into the Ohio River that day," Franklin explained, "but it wasn't his medal. It was his faith in America. The medal he kept as a reminder of what he had achieved and what had been denied him because of his skin color. The replica medal that James Franklin had commissioned was made by the same Italian jeweler who had created the Olympic medals that year, a connection he had through a wealthy business associate. It had cost him nearly $20,000 in 1960, equivalent to over $180,000 in today's money. "But why did my father maintain the story about throwing away the medal?" Laila pressed. Franklin leaned forward. "Because the story served a greater purpose than the literal truth. It became a powerful symbol of resistance against racism. Your father understood that symbols matter, sometimes more than physical objects. But he was known for his honesty." Laila protested, struggling to reconcile this revelation with her understanding of her father. "Your father's commitment was to truth, not always to literal facts," Franklin said gently. "The truth was that America had rejected him despite his Olympic triumph. The medal story perfectly captured that truth in a way people could understand and remember." What truly shocked Laila, however, was learning about the secret partnership that developed between her father and James Franklin. Throughout the 1960s and 70s, they had worked together behind the scenes, with Franklin providing financial support for various civil rights initiatives while Muhammad Ali served as the public face. "My father converted our family restaurant into a community center in 1966, Franklin explained. "Your father helped design the programs, but insisted his involvement remain anonymous. He didn't want his controversial status at the time to impact the work." Franklin walked to a painting on the wall, a vibrant landscape that seemed out of place among the historical photographs. He carefully removed it, revealing a small safe. From it, he withdrew a leather-bound ledger and a stack of photographs. "Your father and mine created what they called the Redemption Fund," he explained. "My father contributed significant portions of his business profits, which your father directed to communities in need without public acknowledgement. The ledger detailed millions of dollars in contributions over decades to educational initiatives in black communities, legal defense funds, and economic development projects in Louisville, Chicago, and beyond." "But why keep this secret?" Laila asked, overwhelmed by these revelations. Franklin's eyes grew distant. "Because your father believed that the medal story served a purpose in the public consciousness that would be diminished if people knew he had forgiven my father. He didn't want their private redemption to weaken the public message about America's racism. Laila returned to her hotel suite at the five-star Brown Hotel in downtown Louisville, her mind reeling. The presidential suite, costing $5,000 per night, felt suffocating despite its opulence. She paced across Italian marble floors, past antique furniture worth more than most people's homes, unable to reconcile the new dimensions of her father she was discovering. On the polished mahogany desk lay the photographs Michael Franklin had given her, images of her father meeting secretly with James Franklin over the years, planning community initiatives, reviewing budgets for scholarship programs, and visiting centers they had funded together. One photograph in particular captured her attention, dated 1996, around the time her father had lit the Olympic torch in Atlanta despite his advancing Parkinson's disease. In it, Muhammad Ali stood with James Franklin beside the Ohio River, both men elderly but smiling, each holding what appeared to be a gold medal. A note on the back in Michael's handwriting explained, "The day they both threw replica medals into the river together, symbolically completing the story while preserving the truth." Laila sat heavily on the brocade sofa, tears streaming down her face. Her father had created a public narrative that served the cause of justice, while privately working toward reconciliation and redemption. The complexity of his wisdom struck her with full force. The next morning, she visited the community center that had once been Franklin's restaurant. Now a thriving hub for youth development, education, and community services, it bore no obvious connection to Muhammad Ali. Yet his influence was everywhere, in the boxing program for at-risk youth, in the emphasis on both athletic and academic achievement, in the quotes about justice and perseverance stenciled on the walls without attribution. The director, unaware of Laila's connection to the center's secret benefactor, proudly showed her around. "We've served this community for over 50 years, she explained. "Nobody knows exactly where our endowment came from, just that a local business owner established it in the 60s. It's allowed us to provide services regardless of economic challenges." Laila noticed a small display case in the director's office containing historical items from the center. Among them was a faded menu from Franklin's restaurant, newspaper, clippings about community programs, and a small blue ribbon with no medal attached. "What's this?" she asked, pointing to the ribbon. "Oh, that's a mystery," the director replied. "It was in the original endowment box. Some say it's from an Olympic medal, but that's just a local legend." Back in Chicago a week later, Laila called a private meeting with her siblings, Lonnie, and close family friends who had known her father well. In her home theater, worth over $2 million with custom leather seating and state-of-the-art projection equipment, she presented everything she had learned. Dad created a powerful public narrative about racial injustice with the medal story, she explained. But privately, he was demonstrating something equally powerful, the possibility of redemption and reconciliation. Mariam, her older sister, shook her head in amazement. "That's so like Daddy, operating on multiple levels. The public needed symbols of resistance, but he personally needed to demonstrate the forgiveness he preached." The family debated for hours about what to do with this new information. Should they correct the historical record? Would revealing the truth diminish the power of the original story? What would Muhammad Ali have wanted them to do? As dawn broke over Lake Michigan, Laila found her answer. She would establish the Muhammad Ali Truth and Reconciliation Foundation, funded initially with $20 million from her personal fortune. The foundation would honor both aspects of her father's legacy, his public stand against injustice and his private work toward healing and redemption. The original Olympic medal would go to the Smithsonian with a carefully worded explanation. that honored the power of both the symbolic story and the complex truth. The replica medal from the Franklins would be displayed at the community center in Louisville, finally acknowledging the secret partnership that had benefited thousands. Most importantly, Laila would share the letters between her father and James Franklin, revealing a dimension of Muhammad Ali that few had known: his capacity to maintain a powerful public stance against injustice while privately working toward healing with those who sought redemption. 3 months later, Laila stood at a podium at the community center in Louisville, now renamed the Ali Franklin Center for Community Empowerment. Before her was a diverse crowd of community members, media, and dignitaries. "My father understood that truth has many dimensions," she began. "He knew that sometimes a story captures an essential truth, even when the literal facts are more complex." The medal he refused to wear, both the original and the replica, taught him that symbols matter, but so does the quiet work of reconciliation. As she unveiled the display containing both medals and the complete correspondence between Muhammad Ali and James Franklin, Laila felt her father's presence more strongly than at any time since his death. "My father threw a medal into the Ohio River twice," she concluded, "once in our collective imagination, where it served as a powerful symbol against racism that we still need today, and once in reality, alongside a man who represented both America's failings and its capacity for change. Both actions mattered. Both were true in the ways that matter most." That night, as media around the world reported on the revelations about Muhammad Ali's secret partnership with James Franklin, Laila watched from her hotel room as the story of her father expanded and deepened in the public consciousness, becoming not just a tale of righteous resistance, but also one of profound wisdom about how justice and healing might coexist. If you've made it this far and felt every word, don't leave without subscribing. I tell these stories with my heart in my hand to reach people like you, who feel, who get emotional, who live. If this truly touched you, give back, comment, subscribe, come be part of this family with me until the next video.